In the summer of 1956, one of my regulars, a merchant marine named Caruso, who came in every few months with salt-cracked boots that needed serious work, sat down in my waiting chair and told me Egypt had just nationalized the Suez Canal. Britain and France went in militarily to take it back. Eisenhower told them to stop, not because he loved Egypt, because he understood the era of European empires writing the rules of global commerce was finished, and the United States intended to replace them. Caruso finished the story and said something I never forgot. He said, "Sal, you know who won that whole thing? Neither side that was fighting, the one who was watching." I thought he was being clever. It took me years to understand he was being precise. I have been thinking about that conversation every day since the end of February. Here is what is happening that is not making the front page. Iran has built a toll booth at the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz. Not a figure of speech, an operational system run by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Ships that want to pass must submit their cargo manifest, crew list, ownership structure, and destination to IRGC-approved intermediaries. Those intermediaries conduct what Lloyd's List Intelligence, the oldest maritime publication on Earth, called geopolitical vetting. Ships that clear the process receive an authorization code and are escorted through by an IRGC patrol boat. The fee, stated publicly by an Iranian lawmaker, is $2 million per crossing. $2 million per ship. And here's the part that changes the meaning of everything else. Payment is collected in Chinese yuan, not dollars, yuan, processed through Kunlun Bank, the Chinese institution that handles Iran-China transactions outside the SWIFT system, specifically because it exists beyond the reach of American sanctions enforcement. Lloyd's List confirmed at least 2 vessels have paid. 26 vetted ships transited between March 13th and 25th. Since the war began, only about 150 vessels total have made it through. In normal times, 138 ships pass every single day. Iran has reduced a highway to a checkpoint, appointed itself the operator, and required the toll be paid in a currency the United States Treasury cannot touch. China's ships get through. Western carriers, vessels flagged under American, European, or British registry, are systematically excluded. The door is not open to them at any price in any currency. Iran's parliament is now writing legislation to make this arrangement permanent. That is not a country that is losing this war. let me tell you what the currency choice actually means, because the coverage is missing it entirely. The petrodollar system, the arrangement under which oil has been priced and settled in American dollars since the 1970s, is one of the foundational pillars of American power. When oil is priced in dollars, every country that needs oil also needs dollars to buy it. That creates permanent, structural, global demand for the American currency, regardless of whether anyone likes American policy. It is why American sanctions have teeth. Cut a country off from the dollar clearing system, and you cut them off from the global oil market. The dollar is not simply a currency. It is the infrastructure of global energy commerce. Has been since a set of agreements made in the early 70s, the foundation under everything. Now consider this. The deputy governor of the People's Bank of China stated this month that the yuan is now used to settle 30% of China's $6.2 trillion in annual global trade. 30%. A decade ago, that number was close to zero. China spent 10 years building the payment infrastructure, the bilateral agreements, the alternative settlement systems to make that possible. They built it quietly, methodically, in full view of Washington, which did not take it seriously because it seemed theoretical. A financial architecture searching for a moment to matter. It found one. Antonio Bardwaj, writing in the Foreign Affairs Forum this month, called the yuan for Hormuz arrangement one of the most consequential financial propositions in the post-Bretton Woods era. He was being precise. Iran is not creating a new monetary system. It is providing the live test case for a system China already built. The infrastructure existed. What it needed was a crisis large enough to make it necessary. This war provided that, and the transaction records being built right now inside Kunlun Bank are the receipts. Here is where it lands on ordinary people, and the timeline matters. Marco Papik at BCA Research published an analysis this week that should be required reading. Right now, the world is losing 4.5 to 5 million barrels of oil per day from the effective closure of the strait. That is roughly 5% of global daily supply. Serious, but barely manageable through strategic reserve releases. After April 19th, that number doubles. 9 to 10 million barrels per day. 10% of global supply gone. Not because of any new military action necessarily, but because the alternative pipeline routes that Saudi Arabia and the UAE have been pushing oil through are approaching their combined maximum capacity of 9 million barrels per day. which still falls short of the 20 million that normally transits the strait. 2,000 ships are sitting stranded on either side of that waterway right now. WTO Secretary General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said this month that global trade is experiencing its worst disruptions in 80 years. Diesel and jet fuel prices in Asian spot markets have already topped the equivalent of $200 per barrel. The Gulf region produces nearly half of the world's urea. Urea prices are already up 50%. The food price increases you will feel this fall are being determined right now in planting decisions made against these numbers. The supply cliff is not a prediction. It is arithmetic. And the window to prevent it is measured in days, not weeks. Now here is the part that is genuinely not being reported, because the main story is consuming all the attention. America's closest allies are not in this war. Spain barred United States warplanes from overflying its airspace. Secretary of State Rubio went to the G7 in France and accused NATO allies of abandoning America in its hour of need. Australia said publicly it had not been consulted before the strikes began. 0 NATO allies contributed military assets to the offensive. This matters for the financial picture in a way almost no one is connecting. The United States has spent 50 years being the country that enforces the rules of global commerce. That role is what justifies the dollar's position. The country that enforces the rules writes the rules. The country that writes the rules controls the currency. When America's closest partners decline to participate in an enforcement action, and Iran simultaneously builds a parallel payment system in a rival currency, these are not two separate stories. They are one story. China condemned the war. China called for dialogue. And Chinese ships have been transiting the strait. Chinese banks have been processing the payments. Chinese companies have been serving as approved intermediaries, brokering passage for other nations. China sources more than 40% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. It has real exposure here, real economic pain. Nobody should pretend China is untouched. But China has access, and the West does not. That asymmetry is not an accident, and it is not temporary. Iran's parliament is legislating it into permanence, and every day it continues, Chinese institutions are building the transactional habits and institutional memory that make yuan-settled oil trade feel routine. Every transaction settled in yuan at the Strait of Hormuz this month is evidence that the next one can be too, and the one after that. China is not changing what money is made of. It is changing what money is used for. One $2 million crossing at a time, in a strait the whole world depends on, while America and Iran negotiate over deadlines that keep moving. Caruso, the merchant marine, understood it watching Suez in 1956. You do not have to be the one fighting to be the one winning. You have to be the one watching and collecting. I have watched the United States at the center of the global financial system for most of a century. I watched it earn that position. I watched it maintain it through arrangements that required constant credibility, constant willingness to be the country that showed up when the rules needed enforcing. What made it durable was the continuous demonstration that the alternative was worse. What this month has demonstrated to every Treasury Minister and central banker watching from a distance is that the alternative is being built. The question is not whether China fired a shot. The question is whether 40 years from now, this month at the Strait of Hormuz is remembered the way Suez is remembered today. Not as the moment the old order fell, but as the moment everyone paying attention understood that it would. Arrivederci.